It's not often that I would do a video around an undrafted rookie free agent coming into their second year with the team, finding themselves buried pretty deep on the depth chart. But Myles Adams is not your everyday, ordinary, undrafted rookie free agent defensive tackle going into their second year. This preseason, he absolutely wrecked shop across the board. You could feel his presence on nearly every play that he was in the game. And in fact, in watching his game and trying to assess him, I kept getting shades of a former Seahawk great that was coming to my mind, and that being one Michael Bennett. Like Myles Adams, Michael Bennett came to your Seahawks as an undrafted rookie free agent. Like Myles Adams, maybe a little undersized for his position. But like Myles Adams, he absolutely obliterated that initial preseason when Michael Bennett walked into the building. And now Bennett didn't last that year because Jim Mora was still the head coach and he didn't understand talent all that great, and they released him. And so he went to Tampa Bay for a couple years until he eventually came back home to Seattle and really flourished at the heights of his career. But what made Michael Bennett good to great is what could potentially make Myles Adams also a very valuable player for this particular team. First, it begins with first step quickness. Then they seem to always get that natural leverage gain because of that first step quickness. The offensive lineman is never quite anticipating that they're going to get as quick into them as they do. Then they add on to this with a myriad of pass rushing moves. You see everything from swim moves to swipes and everything in between. They're never going to give you kind of the same move in back-to-back plays. You always have to be prepared for them to throw everything at you, a lot in their bag, if you will. They also both play with a lot of high energy, high motor players. They also are very aware on the football field. There's times with Myles Adams where you'll see him knocking balls down or coming close to knocking balls down because he'll be aware that the quarterback's trying to throw, very aware in space as to what's going on. You don't see them often fooled. But just over and over again, getting that penetration into the backfield, which was such a common note to Michael Bennett's career, just being kind of a game wrecker in the way he would go about his business. I see the same thing from Myles Adams in this preseason, and it was so encouraging to see. So let's dive into the tape. And let me show you why I think Myles Adams has more to add to this team than just being a back-end guy on the roster or being a guy just to be buried down in the depth chart. I think this guy actually has some legitimate potential and might add a factor to this team that we don't have in other areas outside of maybe a Shelby Harris. So let's dive into the tape, and let me show you how Myles Adams absolutely destroyed this preseason. First play, and he is impressive here right out the gate. What you'll see that's unique on this particular snap for some of the other snaps is that he is not Myles Adams trying to just penetrate here and get right up the field. Instead, he sort of sets up the guard here. His alignment is between the center and the guard, but what you'll notice post-snap is a little bit of a stutter step that he applies. In order to what he's trying to do is get the offensive lineman to raise up his hands a little bit early there so that then he can counter it, and that's indeed what he gets from the guard. Guard brings his hands up. Myles has got a little bit quicker hands. He gets his hands up faster, swipes through the hands, then gets lateral a couple of steps, and then gets into that nice lean and bend that he has. Keep in mind, when you're watching this guy get as low as he's getting, that's a 285, 290-pound man getting that low. Of course, it's the quarterback, doesn't get the sack, but absolutely a legitimate pressure, and again, showing off some of that pass rush repertoire. Here we're going to get to see the impact of Myles in the run game. And what I believe in watching this play a couple times is that Myles read this run play to come to his right side of the field. And what he's also reading within that is that the guard is going to essentially take a step to his left post-snap in order to begin to create that hole to where the play side is trying to go. He takes advantage of this rather than trying to press that left shoulder of the guard. He goes to the right shoulder, understanding that he's got the first step quickness to essentially give up a little ground initially here on the play, running away from where the hole is going, but he's got the quickness to get back to it, as evidenced by the fact that the second that he whips around that guard grabs a hold of his shoulder pads, and it causes the penalty flag to be thrown. But a great job on Myles here of reading the play and then showing off a little bit of that natural ability he has to his game. Now we get Myles Adams back playing defensive tackle. And here again, you're going to see that first step quickness paired with a little bit of lateral ability. So he's not doing the stutter step move here. Instead, he goes off with the first step quickness and then gets lateral a couple of steps to then press up the field and get that cowboy guard to start moving his feet a little bit more than he wants to move. What's notable about this play is it is just a simple rip move that he's applying with some nice bend, but it's him attacking the half a man approach. This is what often the teachers of football will tell pass rushers, which is attack half a man, not the whole man. It's essentially attacking that shoulder, going after the one side of the player and where you want to come after them from a pass rush standpoint, neutralizing almost half of the man because they can't use that side of the body and where you're attacking them from. Myles does a great job on this play of doing that, and it helps garner him a sack. Here we've got Myles Adams again operating from the defensive tackle position, and this time he's going to be going mano-a-mano with the center. Much like we've seen on a couple of the other last few cut-ups, you're going to see the first step quickness, then build up to him going lateral, then getting the offensive lineman to move his feet a little bit more than probably offensive linemen typically want to move it. But then what happens here on this particular play is the center plays it well. He's in very good position off this initial move by Myles, but he's just not a one-move guy, and he's a high-effort guy, and he's going to keep going. And what he does with this is he counters that to the spin move. So he catches the guard leaning a little bit too much to that right side, hits him back with the spin move, causes the pressure, and with it, an incompletion. The quickness here is just absurd. You can see in his alignment that he's on the outside left shoulder of the guard here. That guard thinks there's no chance this guy's going to come back to my right side post snap. He's going to try to get upfield, no doubt about it. Myles doesn't do that. Instead, he does like what we've seen him do a couple times, which is use that first step quickness to what? To the lateral ability, where he gets going sideways and quick. And he gets right up underneath the shoulder pads of that offensive guard post-snap so fast that you see the guard panic like we saw in earlier cut-ups of what should have been a holding call. Wasn't called here on this particular play, but should have been. And if he wasn't held, he absolutely makes this play on the running back. All right, so the Cowboys are starting to get hip to the fact this guy's a bit of a problem. Maybe we need to deal with this. So they just say, F it, let's just put two guys on him here. That'll certainly stop him, right? Right? No, not with Myles Adams, the game wrecker. He laughs at your little double teams, bounces off of it, and still supplies some pressure. Here you're going to get to see some of the more of that high motor. That's right. Here again, he fights up against two double teams. The play is going backside as a run play away from him. Despite that, he drags those double teams all the way to where the hole is supposed to go. And if you notice closely, causes the running back to get a little bit more lateral than he's going to want to get on this particular run play. Another impressive part of Myles Adams' game is his ability to stun. He's really good, as we've already seen, with that first step quickness and lateral ability. And here he shows it off once again, stunting around the edge, looping around, and forcing the quarterback out of the pocket and to have to run maybe a little bit more prematurely than he wanted to. This is not a replay of the last play. Again, similar thing that you saw in the last. Great job stunting. His natural skill set allows him to be a naturally great stunter. With that quickness and lateral ability, shows it off here again gets another pressure. Okay, so Myles Adams can ball out against the Cowboys. How did he do against the other two preseason opponents for your Seattle Seahawks? Well, quite admirably, actually. Now, in the Bears game, he didn't have a whole lot of snaps here. The Seahawks were playing a little bit more of the starters in this game, giving other guys a little bit more exposure on that defensive line. So there's very much a sample size as far as the total snaps he played. But one play that did jump out quite considerably was this one where he got himself a sack. And again, you're going to see him utilize those stunt skills. First step quickness, lateral ability, and bend to finish things off. What jumps out on this particular play as opposed to the last couple of other plays is he does a little bit of a different vibe here in how he goes about his business. Because instead of just looping around off the snap, he goes into the guard and makes that offensive line believe that he's just coming upfield. It's going to be a very traditional pass rush here from this defensive tackle. And after he has shown that commitment, then he starts to loop around and show that quickness. To me, this is what sets up this play. This is what allows it to be so free for him to run around that edge and get right to the quarterback for the sack. Although Adams didn't get a lot of run in the Chicago Bear game, he did get his share of snaps in the Pittsburgh Steelers game and did flash in those snaps. Out the gate here, we are again going to see him in that defensive tackle position. I've heard this referenced as 2I. And what you'll notice on this play is the guard kind of panics post-snap. He sees him up on his shoulder. He knows he's responsible for him on this play. And so he's really got to hurry up and get up on his horse here to try to get back to man up and get heads up with Adams post-snap. And what I noticed in watching this tape is that the offensive lineman's head actually starts to dip down to where he's looking at the turf. Adams uses this to his advantage and spins off of him, showing he's got that nice little spin move in his back pocket. He doesn't go on to it too often, but if he senses the lineman's overcommitting, he will spin off of him, causes the pressure and an incompletion. If you're going to try Myles Adams with a center one-on-one, he's going to whoop his ass nearly every single time. And that is just what happens here. Again, the center is really in a tough position because he's got to try to get wide post snap to meet Adams. Adams is real low in that stance. You can just see once he fires off with that great quickness, he's got that natural win from a leverage standpoint. And that's what happens here. Wins right from the jump and then just leans on that natural advantage to get back there to the quarterback. Puts a pretty brutal hit on the quarterback, quite frankly. I'm surprised he was able to shake it off. Also surprised the quarterback somehow found a way to get rid of this ball, but once again showing some of that explosiveness to his game. A few moments ago, I showed you Myles Adams running a backside running play down while being double teamed. He does the very same thing here on this play. It's very easy for defensive tackles in this position to say, okay, well, I'm taking up two defenders. The play is running away from me. I've got no real chance to get there and do anything. So they just take up their two blockers and consider that a win. He's not done there. He's going to keep that motor going. He's going to keep it revved. He's going to keep fighting and trying to get to the play. And it earns him help here as far as he's able to help make the tackle at the end of the play because of that effort. Just really does stand out here. This is the guy trying to make the roster. This is a guy trying to realize his NFL dreams. And this is the type of stuff that should get you excited. One of the things that can make a good pass rusher is an ability to chain moves together. I'm going to do this, then that, then this. So what you see him chaining together on this particular play is first off the snap, I'm going to utilize my first step quickness and the fact that this offensive guard is going to be very aware of it to jab inside. And I will get that lineman to then commit even just a little bit, to even lean a little bit to inside. Then I'm going to snap back outside, get to that outside shoulder, again, attack half a man, use a rip move then to keep him cleared, and then just dip and bend and lean in to get to the quarterback and cause the pressure. He causes this play to be thrown a little early. This 9 route has no chance to be completed, and it's completely built on the back of Myles Adams generating the pressure on this particular play. High effort, high energy, always aware. Here, Adams does not get pressure with his initial moves, stays with it, keeps fighting, gets his hand up as he realizes the quarterback's about to throw it, and manages to tip the ball. He had a lot of cuts that I didn't show on this one where there were times where he came very close to tipping other passes. This is another attribute of his game. We've seen him catch a few offensive linemen off guard with this setup where he goes to an outside shoulder on one side of the offensive lineman and then post snap is going to come all the way back around to the other side of the shoulder. And you see that here where the guard just thinks he's coming uphill, he's going to attack my left shoulder, let me prepare for that. But the quickness and the first step quickness especially of Adams allows him to just dive right inside, create the easy pressure right up the middle, and again, force the early throw by the quarterback. I've shown you twice Adams running down a player, running away from him on the backside as he's being double teamed. And once again, he does that here. Now, this isn't as pure a double team. The second player who's trying to double him just sort of does a half-hearted effort looking to kind of block somebody else. But he's still got multiple hands on him trying to hold him back there, still revving up that high motor that he has, getting down to the backside of the play, and then making a play on the ball carrier. Not just getting there, not just fighting through the double team, but then making the play too. On this final cut up, what is definitely impressive is that Myles Adams makes the play in the run game again here, and he is awesome in this respect of he's holding up at the point of attack, which is a little bit different from some of the other cut-ups I've shown you here where it's all about explosion and him getting up the football field. But what's really impressive about this particular play beyond those items is that he is utilizing this new technique that the defensive line is going to try to employ this year for your Seattle Seahawks. Seattle has tended to operate from mainly a two-gap system in how they've asked their defensive linemen to go about their business. This essentially means that as a defensive lineman, you're responsible for either shoulder, both left and right shoulder. If the running back's coming through that lane for you, you've got to handle business there. Well, in this new scheme, it's more of a gap and a half. So it's not the single gapping approach, which would be just like what it sounds like. You're just attacking to one gap and trying to get upfield as fast as you possibly can. Well, instead on this one, you're going to try to do some of that, but you always got to have a route back to home. You always got to have a route back to that other gap to make sure that it's protected. And what you see on this particular play from Adams is that he does indeed shoot that initial gap. He is pressing it hard and fast, trying to get to that edge of things. But then he notices the running play is coming back to the backside. And he makes sure that he leaves him enough room for error, I should say, to where he can then come back to the backside of the play and then still make the tackle. So is he holding the point of attack? Yes. But is he also utilizing this new technique that you should expect to see your Seahawks defensive linemen utilize at all times or a majority of the time this year? Absolutely. Myles Adams was an absolute wrecking ball this preseason. He flashed in all 3 games that he played. 11 pressures, 3 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 7 tackles, 1 batted down ball at the line of scrimmage, and an 87.6 pass rushing grade. It doesn't even begin to tell the whole story, though, does it? Snap in and snap out, you felt this man's presence all across the board. And I'm not predicting necessarily superstardom for this kid. I don't think you're looking at that kind of rise here. But with his first step quickness, with his pass rush repertoire, with his high motor, I just can't help but think this Seahawks coaching staff is going to find a way to utilize that skill set. And if he puts that skill set on the football field, I think you are going to see some impact, at least to some degree. It'll be fun to watch this kid continue to grow and develop. But boy, did he have one hell of a preseason. Let's see if he can keep it up.